the legacy and remnants of apartheid and colonialism, which still are a lived reality in South Africa. So we need to then deal with that much more conclusively. So that is basically where we are now. Thank you very much. Yes, you can go. The questions, 1, 2, 3,
okay,
4.
From the SABC. I hear you say that whoever you're going to coalition the government of national unity with must have an appreciation of certain things. Now, an appreciation is not necessarily non-negotiable. Please explain the difference. What are your non-negotiables and how does appreciation, how does that even work? The second one is that you're saying that there must be a commitment to anti-racism and anti-imperialism. Are you specifically talking about the DA, for instance, who you'll be sitting in a government of national unity with, who is diametrically opposed to many of these things that you were talking about? And then the third thing is, are you not concerned that becoming part of the GNU will be a dilution of the role that you have effectively been playing as an opposition in this country?
You want to go with those first?
No, you can. I can take all the questions. Yeah, I'll remember everything.
My name is Bloomberg News. So first of all, can you just cover the sense of who the annual negotiating team for the EFF police talks? Then last week, the leader of the EFF had said that he is not Nelson Mandela, and so a government of national unity is not an option. Has that position now changed? If the ANC does not have another proposal outside of this national unity, would you agree to it, given that it would also include the DA, who I'm getting the sense you would prefer not to work with? What is your counter to a government of national unity that you might put to the ANC? And then the last one, you mentioned the things that are of importance to you going into these talks, for instance, expropriation. It was not a condition when you went into a power sharing agreement, like coalition in Johannesburg and Gule. Is there scope for that kind of compromise again? Thank you very much.
Christian, filling to attack my questions overlaps a bit. My first question is just, will the EFF be willing to partake in a government of national unity and under what circumstances? And secondly, those issues that you raised, are they non-negotiable, and which issues is the EFF prepared to negotiate?
Oh, is there another question?
Yes.
Yeah, you can
from the SABC.
Yes.
On the negotiations thus far, we saw the leader of the party doing that arrogance, rearing its ugly head once again, and not desperate for any cabinet positions. What is the actual deadlock that you are having with the African National Congress right now? Is it the matter of the GNU? Are you not willing to work with the Democratic Alliance at all? And then lastly, how would you envisage a government that you may have and come up with? There is a coalition. What is your envisaged coalition if you were to go into one of the ANC? Can you just describe it to us in layman's terms? Thank you.
No, look, let's deal with this issue of the government of national unity. We are opposed to the government of national unity in as far as it resembles what was concocted in 1994. So if you were to check the outcomes of that government of national unity of Nelson Mandela, it had F.W. de Klerk as an executive deputy president. It had Pik Botha as a minister of mineral resources and energy. It had Andre van Niekerk as the minister of land and agriculture. It had some mayor from the National Party as minister of the environmental affairs and water affairs. And even he had in social development a minister which came from the apartheid establishment. We do not want to form any part of a government with representatives of the white colonial and apartheid system. And we think now that through fair observation and what got to happen with the Democratic Alliance and all these minority white parties, they represent that agenda. That is why the beneficiaries of the white capitalist and apartheid colonial establishment exclusively funded the Democratic Alliance and all these puppet parties. A lot of resources, hundreds of millions, were invested not just to fight the ruling party, the ANC, to fight against the economic freedom fighters, where you had political organizations who dedicated their energy, their resources, human capital, and everything else that they dedicated was against the economic freedom fighters. We are not going to form part of any government with the Democratic Alliance. We're not going to sit alongside the Democratic Alliance and Freedom Front Plus in government as the economic freedom fighters. And we are not desperate for positions in government. We're not going to do everything in our power so that we're appointed into cabinet or we become speakers of parliament and all of those things. We're not going to sit alongside the land thieves. We're not going to sit alongside the people who got to benefit unlawfully for a very long time from colonialism and apartheid. We're not going to sit alongside them and constitute the government of South Africa. If the ANC wants to choose that route, they can go ahead and do what they did in 1994. And we know what are the consequences of what happened in 1994. Black people and Africans in particular remain on the margins of economic participation in South Africa. Black people more or less stay in the same spaces that they lived under when apartheid had segregated black people to inferior spaces. It's still a lived reality. Racism is still a reality. Poverty of our people is still a reality because of this government of national unity. If there's going to be any government of national unity, there must be clarity of what unity, what are uniting on. And our agenda that we are placing is that it must be the land question that must be at the center of what unites whatever government is going to be constituted. It must be a common agenda to improve the lives of our people because our people are still on the margins of the economy. It must be an agenda to provide free education. Must be an agenda to protect workers' rights and interests, to enforce minimum wages in all the sectors where they are applicable. That is what the agenda should be all about. It must not just be about position sharing. It must be on principal issues that primarily emancipates and protects the interests of our people. That is the agenda that we are looking into. So you must look into the statement which we issued at the Results Operations Center. We say, as the EFF, that whoever is going to constitute government with us should have an appreciation of what we stand for. Because there are parties, by the way, who think that what we stand for is irrational, it's madness, that we're not even worth entertaining. Remember, we tried before. There are political parties here in South Africa who say that they will never ever meet with the economic freedom fighters. So we say whoever must want to constitute a government with us should have an appreciation of what we stand for as a movement. But two, we also said that because we are expected to constitute a government within the 14 days after the official announcement of the results, we do appreciate as the EFF that there are certain areas in detail on policy that can be finalized later on, but the base agreements should be consolidated. And that is an avowed and clear agenda to pursue an agenda that seeks to undo the legacies and remnants of colonialism and apartheid in South Africa. Must be an appreciation on an approach to the land question, on free education, and all these other aspects that we have highlighted in terms of what is expected. So that is basically how we are dealing with these issues. We do not have any coalition agreement with the ANC in the municipalities. There is a working arrangement that got to happen, but majority of the policy issues, by the way, which we are highlighting, are not in the sphere of the local state to could implement in terms of how that could be handled in terms of those issues. There is no dilution that is going to define the economic freedom fighters. If anything, it's going to strengthen it. Remember that the formation of the EFF was not just as a protest movement. Foundationally, we're not just a protest movement. We're an organization which, even in Uncle Tom's Hall, on the 26th and 27th of July 2013, we said that we're a government in waiting. We are not just an organization that is protesting and just complaining. We're an organization that has to take political power, take over the state, govern on behalf of the people of South Africa. And that is what we're going to do. That is what we've been doing in the cities of Johannesburg, of Ekurhuleni, in the city of Ekurhuleni, in Nelson Mandela Bay municipality. So we are now elevating that participation to provide decisive and clear government at the national and provincial level. That is who we are. We are fighting for political power so that we can play a role of resource allocation on behalf of the people of South Africa, because we think that thus far the ANC has dismally failed to leverage the resources, the economic resources that society and South Africa has for the benefit of the majority of the people. And we want to play that role centrally from a government point of view. And we're going to do that if the basis, the principal basis upon which we can collaborate are fully established. We're not going to go into it from a point of desperation. That is where we come from. I'm sure I've answered all the questions.
Your negotiating team,
Oh, the negotiation team is composed of the officials of the economic freedom fighters outside of the president. So we give reports to the president and commander-in-chief. So ourselves as the officials, we are the ones who have been meeting, myself as deputy president and the secretary general, the national chairperson, the treasurer general, and then